I am Melissa Burch, and this is homeopathyhealsyou.us blog for people interested in natural health. So I've been doing a series of blogs around how to take your case yourself from a homeopathic viewpoint. And so in this first blog in the series, I told you how you could take a case as a journal exercise, not to prescribe the remedy, but to start to understand this deeper state from your chief complaint. And in the second blog in this series, I told you how you could start to analyze your journal or your case from a homeopath's viewpoint. And I had you circle words that were strange, rare, and peculiar, that were kind of expressed in an unusual way or an unusual connection to your problem. I also had you circle words that were very intense, either because that just had a lot of charge when you wrote it or it was repeated many times. And I also had you circle these non-human specific or universal language, which are these expressions that could be used in all different situations, in nature, in the material world, different ways other than in a human context. So I use the word stinging, which could be used bee sting, acid stings, and how that's a universal language compared to depression, which is very human based. Okay, so in this third exercise, what you can do is start to understand, we have this idea in homeopathy of miasms. And miasms is a complex way of understanding how we inherit sort of different ways of being, and both in our physical condition. So it has a kind of genetics idea that, you know, there are certain conditions that families inherit. We also have the idea that certain types of culture are more susceptible to certain ways of expressing themselves in their own types of diseases. And there's the third way, that's a more modern way of looking at miasms, which has to do as a coping mechanism. How do we usually cope? Okay, so we're going to really focus on this third one in this exercise. And this is where you're going to read over your journal, what you wrote from this chief complaint or this problem that you have. And you're going to look at those words that you circled. And you're going to start to see, do they give you any indication of how you cope? Because from your problem, even if it's like I gave the example of this skin condition that's itching and I can't get away from it and how it bothers me. So if I start to understand these words, these expressions of how am I coping with it, I could start to see that I probably have this type of coping in everything I do in my life. Wow, what does that mean? Okay, so this is a big concept, this concept of miasm and how we understand how we cope in the world. But what you can see, even from this small journal exercise, is that you're going to see a sense of urgency around this problem. So you could see how intense is that urgency. That's one way that some people cope, that it's like an acute, it has to be taken care of now, 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 now. I can't cope with it, I have to get help now, or I go into a complete panic situation because it has to happen now. So there's people like that. If you're one, you know it very well. If you're not, you definitely probably know people like this. Then there are people that hide their problems, right? Oh, you know what, if I just ignore it, it's going to go away. I'm sure of it, you know, and then it kind of pops up again, and then, you know, like, so for that skin condition, you know, if I just get the right ointment, it'll go away. If it's unsightly, I can use some makeup, it'll go away. You know, this is a different, completely different type of coping mechanism. Then there are people who are going to really try to control the situation, right? You know, they're going to do everything they can to make sure, you know, they might wear a long sleeve shirt to cover it up, you know, there might be some of that hiding, but everything they do will be how to control this, how to make sure that there's no chaos around this situation. And then there's others who will be like, they'll take it to the most extreme. Either I'm going to, you know, they'll use this oftentimes in language, you know, I might as well just cut my hand off, right? If it's a skin problem on my hands, better just get rid of it altogether, just cut it off. So there's these ways that you can start to understand, even in this small journal exercise, start to see if you can hear different ways that you might be coping with this specific example, and see that this most likely applies to your whole life. And this is a miasmic way of understanding disease, how we have an individual state in the world, and something that's very, very profound in the way that we understand homeopathy.